Everybody's talking at me. Chuck Wilder, CRN. Let me tell you about my guest, Kimberly Dvorak, D-V-O-R-A-K, award-winning National Security, Border Security Investigative Reporter. She is the Senior Foreign Policy Advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy. She is the TV correspondent at CW6 News San Diego, One America News Network. Her website, thekdreport.com, and she should be streaming live at periscope.com and Facebook. Kimberly, how are you?
I'm fine. Got rid of all the technical difficulties with Facebook, so we're up and running again on that platform.
You spent your time in Facebook jail, and pardon me. Hey, listen, before we get to China and other countries buying up some American land, I mean, this is disturbing.
Yeah.
Pension battle. The most important news is Kimberly got the lowest score ever in her golf. How in the world did that happen? And why are you getting to go out on the links? Huh?
Well, that's the one thing with COVID here that's been actually rather pleasant for us that live in Northern Virginia is Virginia was one of the only states that didn't make it mandatory to shut down all of the golf courses. So we've been enjoying golfing with people from Maryland and North Carolina, Pennsylvania, New York. I mean, people have been coming down to enjoy the golf courses here. And as such, you know, we get to get out there and play a little bit more golf than I think we usually do because the prices are a lot less as well. So anyways, yes. So yesterday I scored my best round ever and I was like so excited. Probably a one-off, obviously. Tomorrow will be a different day or the next time I get out there will be a different time. But anyways, it was exciting for me.
So did Barack Obama, did he happen to make it down there with you at the time? Or
no, and they've kept Fort Belvoir closed, and that's where Obama liked to golf, was Fort Belvoir. And that course, there's two courses there, and they both remain closed. I don't know. I'm not going to put the two and two together here, but we could have a good giggle.
All right. All right. Well, listen, you start out this excellent report here with oil prices going through the floor. As the United States economy struggles from the coronavirus pandemic, China and other foreign countries could pick up some Texas oil at bargain basement prices. And I've been hearing about this, like they're selling the land, and there's no law against selling the land, is there? Yeah,
I think this is. I think that the President Trump will at some point have to intervene if the states don't kind of start setting some regulations as far as who can come in and purchase land and entire industries. We look at what happened with COVID, how the majority of the antibiotics and prescription drugs are manufactured in China. We've seen China, jack up the prices and hoard the PPE equipment that doctors and nurses need to treat patients safely. And the United States didn't manufacture any of this. So I think the next logical thing to look at is, obviously the Chinese looking forward cornered the market on this aspect of things. And now that they've seen the U.S. economy fall because everything has been shut down, that they are looking at even more, industries that they'd like to take over the United States. And the number one right now happens to be the U.S. oil industry, which we've seen in Texas alone. There are 98 energy companies that went under and filed for bankruptcy. So you're seeing China and other countries as well, but primarily China in this aspect, coming in and offering money to take over these local, and these are more of the smaller operations, and go in and take the, and offer a price to take the wheel over, if you will, to keep those pumps moving, and put that money in there, because China's Communist Party, they don't have to worry about necessarily what the economy's doing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And let me repeat, listener, 98 Texas energy companies filed for bankruptcy since 2015, and here's a quote. The Texas Railroad Commissioner, Wayne Christian, he was giving out these statistics. Now, it's funny to me, I mean, not funny, but strange. Here, the Railroad Commission is the state regulator for oil and gas companies.
Yeah.
That just seems kind of strange. And a very familiar area that an area I'm very familiar with, I'll put it in the right order there, Kimberly, is the Permian Basin. Okay. because I lived in the Permian Basin most of my life.
Really?
And I lived in a and I lived in a little small town that just happened to be the natural gas capital of the world, and the population was only 3,000 to 4,000 people. But all the gas came in from the Permian Basin, and it was refined and then shipped, you know, like to the West Coast or whatever.
Yeah.
And the Permian Basin just recently had their biggest discovery, 46.3 billion barrels underground.
Yep.
In other words, listener, it's a very important place.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit of New Mexico and a whole bunch of Texas, and that's what you've got with the Permian Basin.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest oil.
Well, I think that in the
oil puddle in the United States. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously Texas can really lay claim to that, you know, large source of oil that actually feeds the United States, and now is actually we're net exporters, which we were making money until China or until Russia and the Saudi Arabians decided to drive down the oil prices. The consequences of that, who knows? If, you know, Russia was working with China behind the scenes on this, who knows? But the consequences of that put our people out of business, and then you're seeing the Chinese come in because they need and require a lot more energy than they're able to produce on their own. So they are still buying the world's oil. In fact, they're even buying oil from Iran and many seemingly characters in the Middle East. So this, you know, while, you know, it might have been like starting out that, you know, the Saudi Arabians, hey, we're just going to drop the oil prices to get rid of all of these smaller refiners and oil companies in Texas. You know, China, you know, they were looking at this smartly. Hey, look, we're going to just go in and buy this. Don't worry. Look what we did to the medical industry for them. Look what this economy has done because of the COVID virus. We're going to go in and start, you know, gobbling up that, if you will, and we will take that energy away from the United States. And we are selling. I mean, it should be, I cannot believe the Trump administration hasn't gotten into this. And obviously no mainstream coverage on this whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, here's one that I'm kind of on, you know, that I know about and we've talked about. But if you're ready for this, listeners, are you ready? Okay. Well, let's see here. Nearly 30 million acres of United States farmland are now being held by foreign investors. Now, that should ring the alarm bell, as Kimberly says.
Again,
30 million acres.
Yeah. Again, we see what happened to Central California when they, you know, basically when the state shut off the water over the Delta smelt in the fish that are in the Delta, which are not, which are not even native to California, mind you, but they shut off the Central California bread basket, which actually was not just the bread basket of California, but it was shipped out its produce and goods to other states on the West Coast and the Western states. So what you're seeing here is you're seeing, you know, now we have the economic downturn with the economy and as of COVID, and you are seeing families that don't necessarily, you know, the children or grandchildren who have grown up don't want to be farmers anymore. They want to leave. So they're selling these large operations that have thousands and thousands of acres, then they're selling them to the Chinese. They're buying up now, they're buying up the food. And what I learned, which is really, really disturbing because it was, you know, national news for the last couple of weeks, was Smithfield. Those Smithfield plants that were meat packing companies and pork related industries, they were a hot spot for COVID for quite some time, and they were completely shut down. Well, if you do a little digging, you find out that Smithfield pork plants are owned by China. China owns those. So, you know, did the COVID come in that direction? Did it come into our country via that reason as well? I mean, it spread so quickly. You have to start to believe that some of the people, I mean, we know for a fact that, you know, Italy was such a major and deadly hotspot because their country's been in such economic turmoil that they could not get out of the debt that they were under, that China went over and decided to go in and invest in Italy. Well, probably they'll take over Italy, but, you know, for the meantime, they went in and you know, tried to shore up Italy's financial issues. And that's where they had the major outbreak, because the flights going back and forth across the globe from China to Italy, they went in, and there was no regulations, no nothing. And that's why Italy became the largest hotspot in the globe, around the globe on this, because they were open, still had their airplanes flying in and out of China over to Italy. So, I mean, there are a number of avenues how this happens, and this just provides another one that nobody's talking about.
Yeah. And one of their new spots, Kimberly, and I've had a guest on talking about it, the guy who wrote Bully of Asia. Africa, okay? They're going in. We're going to build you ports and railroads, and sure, you'll pay us back. Oh, you don't have the money? Okay, we're going to stay here and start bringing our ships in over here and all this stuff. Panama Canal, I mean, they, from one end to the other, right?
Yeah.
The interesting part, and I got to give the listener the good news, Iowa is apparently the only state in the United States where no land is allowed to be owned by a foreign entity, okay? But here's the worst news. You're saying, I don't have it right in front of me, but basically, once this land is sold to a foreign investor or whatever, the United States cannot force it back. Is that it?
Yep. Well, I mean, I presume through legislation that, they could somehow claw back at it. They do that when they're making highways, and they kind of, go in and take homes and say, sorry, but because we're doing this project, it's bigger than your one home. But, it makes it very, very difficult. So it would behoove the president and his, cabinet members to have a look at these two issues, because these are two issues that are, that the U.S. population uses every single day. We all eat food. We all need energy, whether it's to heat our homes or drive our cars. Those are two major, major industries. And if we allow the Chinese and other foreign actors like Saudi Arabia or Qatar or some of these other countries to come in and buy this stuff, then we're only adding to our economic woes and maybe economic implodement.
Well, I'll tell you, 146,000 acres of prime U.S. farmland.
Yeah.
Chinese companies now own.
Yeah, they do. So it's worth us looking at, and it's absolutely appalling that mainstream media is not picking up on these stories, because this is something that affects every single American, just like the COVID affects every single American. Everybody eats in this country, and everybody, again, needs fuel for, whether to heat or air condition, or to drive your cars, or to power lights on the side of the road and in your neighborhood. It's essential for our, continuance as a country. And the fact that nobody really wants to talk about this, because right now it just happens to be the, Trump administration here. It's just really sad that, we're allowing foreign countries like China, who perpetrated the onset of this virus, and to see them just completely get by pretty much unscathed is absolutely unacceptable. Hopefully this talk and your listeners will reach out to their local, congressmen, senators, and say, look, why aren't you paying attention to this? This is big news.
Yeah, really. And you might say that today, Kimberly and I will be fair and balanced, and I will tell you that she also reports nationwide, if you're ready for this, Canadian investors own the most farmland. In Ohio, it's Germany. They have 71,000 acres. So it's everything from C to G, so to speak. And as you say, the children, they're not interested anymore, in continuing the good old tradition of farm, most of the children. And they just want to cash out, get the money, and go buy another video game or whatever, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
hey, you want to get into this, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I just think that, with younger people, they just don't have this, with a global world out there, they just don't have the same mindset, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. You basically grew up in the town you were born in, and you didn't really, travel too much outside, a couple states near you. So, obviously, flying airplanes and the internet and globalization has, kind of been a spark for some of these, young people to not want to continue on with the family farm.
And the worst thing, they've been indoctrinated in our schools and colleges. So socialism, good. We don't have to work. Yeah, we'll be taken care of. Hey, another stimulus check from Nancy Pelosi. Hey, real quick, we have very little time. Let's get into the pension battle you're talking about. We've got 1 minute before we take a break.
Okay. Yeah. So in California, the CalPERS, which is primarily for the teachers, they have given very lavish pension plans to the teachers and administrators, and they've overpromised, and they're going to have to underdeliver at this point. And you've seen that Gavin Newsom is really trying to be good friends with President Trump on this, because he wants to get at least $500 billion. And the fear from the Republican side on this is that states like California, who have overpromised and underdelivered, this federal money will go back to these states and go into teachers' pension plans, and they need to actually go in and figure out what's a good rate for the pension plans on some of these things. The benefits are, I mean, in California, the best benefits in the country, but there are other states like Illinois that are pretty close, and that's what the president's worried about. And this is something where if Pelosi, the president, and everybody was really looking out for the people who are wanting to get this economy running again, and like Pelosi's trying to do this $3 trillion new stimulus thing. Why doesn't she take every person who's over the age of 18 and under the age of 65? If they make more than 100,000 a year, whatever, split that money up and give everybody a check to that, whether it's 100,000 or 5,000. There you go, straight to the people.
Sounds Greek to me. Kimberly Dvorak, the KDReport.com. She's going to be right back and wrap things up. Don't go away. Chuck Wilder with the one and only Kimberly Dvorak, the KDReport.com. I like this tweet you gave. Very little time here, but President Trump, quote, "Why should the people and taxpayers of America be bailing out poorly run states like Illinois, for example, and cities? In all cases, Democrat run and managed. When most of the other states are looking for bailout help, I'm open to discussing anything but just asking. President Trump, just asking." Well, you could get some mail on that one, huh?
Yeah. Well, yeah. He's always got to insert his voice into there. But this is actually true, and you're actually seeing lawmakers in a number of states that are saying, we actually, ran our states properly. We don't have, we operate on surpluses, not debt. And now you want us to take, some of the money that would have come back to our state through the federal government and send more to California because they weren't frugal, they weren't mindful of how they spent taxpayers' money. And you have companies like Tesla who is now leaving the state. And that's like one of the last, we talked about this last week, the largest car manufacturers in the state.
Yeah, but he's going to stay now, Kimberly.
No, I think he's not. He's going to organize his deal, but the headquarters are leaving. What they're working on is trying to keep that plant there. And
you would be the one to know, let me tell you right now. So, yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
figured him and Newsom got together, and had Kool-Aid or something. Please don't leave,
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this about Gavin Newsom. I have my son, my kids live in California still, and all the young people out there and I've never heard this from them ever before, because most young people, they aren't very political, but they have full-throated endorsed hate against the governor. And they're not just saying Governor Newsom, they're saying Democrat Governor Newsom, that they absolutely do not like. So this is young people who are usually very liberal are seeing how he's handling this situation and at home more, so they're actually reading the news a little bit more, and they are not happy with what's going on in California.
And in L.A. especially, they want to recall Garcetti, and that is Democrats and Republicans.
Yep.
Let's see, you can get in the wet sand, but stay off the dry sand.
Yeah.
How in the world do you get to the wet sand? I don't know. Maybe stilts will be allowed.
Inquiring minds.
I got to say this, because Kimberly is live on Facebook again. She got out of the Facebook jail after 1 week. And some very good comments from people today, Kimberly, and one lady, Marilyn, for example, talking about, whenever you rebuild the story, $741 million taxpayer dollars, building the port of Tijuana, Mexico, to help, And we thank you for being here and bringing that up. Kimberly, when she's not busy playing golf someday, I might just call her up and ask her, hey, let's talk about that. Again, you know what I mean?
Well, thank you.
Don't worry, Governor Gavin Newsom. Let me find it here. He's asking for $2.03 for his new budget. Did I read that wrong? I'm sorry. It's $203 billion.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just can't win, can we?
No.
No. All right. Well, practice your putting. I guess you don't need to since you got that fabulous score. And yeah, and I really look forward to our next visit. By the way, I'm going to have to talk to you on that because that's on a holiday. So we might
Tuesday.
Change off next Monday. All right.
All right.
Pick another day. All right, and it'll be up to you any day but Friday, I think. Maybe I don't know. All right, Kimberly Dvorak, DBORAK, and it's thekdreport.com.